Today's video, we're going to look at a passage in which Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and it's found in Mark chapter 9, and we're going to start in verse 33. And this is how the passage goes. He says, "Then he came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, 'What was it you disputed among yourselves on the road?'" So while they were coming there, traveling, the disciples had a dispute, a discussion, an argument even. But they kept silent. They didn't answer. See, they didn't even probably want to answer. For on the road they had disputed among themselves who would be the greatest. So this is an argument we see that they had different times about who's the greatest or who would be the greatest, which one would have preeminence. And it was something that was important to them as they were jockeying for position or supposed position that they would have. And he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all." And Jesus has given this principle of leadership, of authority and power. And he's basically saying leadership is in serving. You don't make yourself first. It's not about you and you getting what you want or what you think you deserve. He says you will be the one that will serve. You will be the last, not the first. That's what makes you first, is being the last. It's complete flip. And this is the way the kingdom works. It turns it upside down. Now, one of the reasons for this in this situation, in this case, is because Jesus exists in relationship and union with his Father, in which it isn't a hierarchical structure. It's not about preeminence. It's not about one part of the Godhead being greater than the other part, because he said, "I and my Father are one." And in this union, it works in the same thing that he tells us about relationships with one another, about submitting one to another, about esteeming others better than yourself. This is the way that it works. And in that perfect relationship of submission, it's not about, do I get what I want, but yet serving and giving to another. James tells us if we have this self-seeking, this "do I get what I want" sort of perspective, that we have confusion and every evil thing results from that. And so he's reshaping and he's giving them instruction rather than argue about who's the greatest. I want you to understand, he says, that the greatest is the one who is last, not the one who has the preeminence, who is seen as the authority. Now relate this what we were talking about in previous weeks about relationships, and we can take the notion of being the head as being the one in charge, but that contradicts what Jesus is telling them. I'm going to continue reading here. He says, so repeat again, "If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all." Then he took a little child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, so he take him into his lap, into his arms, and he says, "Whoever receives one of these little children in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me." Because the Father and Son are one. So now when Jesus takes this child and sets him here in his lap, takes him in his arms and said, "You need to be like this child." What do we know about this child, the characteristics of this child? Nothing. All we know about this child is that it is a child. Now, we look at children and we see them as still in process, still things to learn, things they haven't experienced, things that they're ignorant of, they just don't know. And we accept them as such. We treat them with honor and respect if we do it right, because we're able to help them to learn and to grow. We evaluate them according to what they don't know, and we give them grace and mercy for the things that they don't know and haven't developed the abilities to do yet. We work with them according to where they are, knowing that they yet need to learn. And the child does not have the opportunity or the ability to assert itself as dominant in the situation, because the child also at some level recognizes as a child that he is still or she is still the younger. And there's a lesson in this. It isn't about being some perfect thing, as it is being the one who realizes that you are the child and receiving others as the children. What I don't know, I don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. And it affects and shapes how I and how you live and interact and behave. And we can give grace to one another, and we can lead and help one another by giving honor and serving and not saying, I'm great, just follow me and do what I say, but actually showing and setting an example and encouraging this child. This is the way that we work with children when we really understand, is we know that they have things to learn, as do they, and we help them and we work with them from where they are, not somewhere else, and not in some hierarchical dictatorial fashion that creates frustration and interrupts relationship. So Jesus sets this child here in his lap and says, you need to be like this child and you need to receive this child. Because in receiving this child as one who still needs to learn, doesn't need you to lord it over, needs you to be an example and an encouragement and a help. This is becoming as a child, and this is receiving the child.